Learnergizers, and welcome back to my channel Learnergize, where you learn to strategize your studies. Thank you so much for your love and support that you gave me in my very first video, where we started with the explanation of a short story, The Bet by Anton Chekhov. In this video, I'll definitely cover the next part of it. And before that, let me quickly cover up the recap of what we did in the last session. So we started with the story The Bet, which is about a silly bet that was materialized between the two people, that is a banker and the lawyer, on a very heated conversation, or an argument rather, so to say, that they had, wherein the banker favored the death penalty or the death sentence, and the lawyer favored the life imprisonment. So there was an argument that happened in that party where the death sentence is better than life imprisonment. So in between this casual conversation, a very heated argument rather emerged between the two of them, and the banker supposedly challenged the lawyer, saying that I challenge you to spend a couple of years of your life in imprisonment, and I will pay you, if you complete that bet, I'll pay you $2 million. And surprisingly, the lawyer agreed to that bet and even made it harder by adding some more years to it. So the banker asked him to spend 5 years in imprisonment, and the lawyer extended that time period to 15 long years. That is where we had ended. Now let's begin beyond that. And just before I begin, let me show you that I have this book, okay? So when I'm explaining, I'm obviously looking down, and that's one small reason why I keep looking down and then explain the entire story to you. I don't want to miss out on any explanation. So let's go line by line. Let's get started. The Bet by Anton Chekhov. Alright, so we ended where the banker was trying to be very empathetic towards the lawyer and trying to give him a second chance to think or rethink on his decision. He said, you still have time to consider your decision and to take back the bet or the challenge. Why did he do so? He felt that the lawyer would not be able to complete the challenge because it's not easy to spend your life in imprisonment, and that too voluntarily for a sum of money. So that is where we ended, and the last line said by the banker was, the thought that you have the right to step out in liberty at any point will poison your whole existence in the prison. I am sorry for you. So that is where we ended. The banker said that the thought that you can move out of this prison any moment because you have voluntarily agreed to it kills you every minute and every moment. So I feel sorry for you, my friend. Then he remembered that followed that evening. From here on, we come back to the present time. Abhi tak, the banker, what was he doing? He was thinking about that time period or that one autumn evening जब उसने वो party throw करी थी. एक एक event को वो याद कर रहा था कि कैसे क्या क्या हुआ and how did this challenge or this bet materialize. अब we are getting back to the present time. अब वो time है जहाँ पे the banker is, or rather was, thinking about that bet. Okay. Then he remembered what followed that evening. He here is the banker. अब उसने वो सोच रहा है कि उसके बाद क्या हुआ था उस evening को. It was decided that the young man should spend the years of his captivity under the strictest supervision in one of the lodges in the banker's garden. तो उसके बाद डिसाइड क्या हुआ था, अब बेट तो हो गई, अब उसके कुछ टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस तो ले डाउन होंगे ना, सो दैट इट कैन मटेरियलाइज प्रॉपरली एंड ऑफिशियली उसको एक स्टैम्प पेपर पे क्लोज कर सकें. सो उसकी टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस कैसे डिसाइड हुई? इट वाज डिसाइडेड दैट द यंग मैन शुड स्पेंड द इयर्स ऑफ हिज कैप्टिविटी, दैट इज कैप्टिविटी इज इम्प्रिजनमेंट, जितने टाइम उसके लिए बाइंड हुए थे 15 ईयर्स, अंडर द स्ट्रिक्टेस्ट सुपरविजन, यानी बहुत ही स्ट्रिक्ट अध्यरेंस के साथ, in one of the lodges in the banker's garden. तो बैंकर ने क्या किया, अपने ही घर में, because he was very rich, so उसने अपने ही घर में एक छोटा सा लॉज, एक छोटा सा कॉटेज अपने गार्डन में था. So he said, यहाँ पे you will be captivated, okay, for the 15 long years. It was agreed that for 15 years he should not be freed. He यहाँ पे is the lawyer. okay, who will be staying in that lodge for 15 years. So क्या conditions थी, क्या terms and conditions थी, हम अब पढ़ेंगे. It was agreed that for 15 years he should not be free to cross the threshold of the lodge. Threshold कहते तो हैं दरवाजे को, okay? In other words, दरवाजे की वो जो मुहाट होती है. So यहाँ पे what we mean to say is he was not allowed to cross the threshold of the lodge. In other words, he was not allowed to cross the boundaries of the lodge, or rather move out of the lodge to see human beings, to hear the human voice, or to receive letters and newspapers. In other words, उसका कोई भी current life or current world, outside world के साथ connection allowed नहीं था. So what was not allowed to him? He was not allowed to move out of the lodge. He was not allowed to see human beings, to hear the human voice, or to receive any letters or newspapers. Yani any single bit of connection with the outside world was not allowed to him, the way it is not allowed in real sentence, life imprisonment that is. He was allowed to have a musical instrument and books. अब उसको क्या नहीं allowed था ये तो हो गया. क्या allowed था ये अब हम देखेंगे. He was allowed to have a musical instrument and books. उसको अपने recreation के लिए इतना allowed था. And was allowed to write letters, to drink wine and to smoke. तो कुछ चीज़ें, कुछ conditions उसके लिए, कुछ privileges उसको छोटे छोटे मिल गए थे, which was to have a musical instrument, to have some books, in other words he could read books, was allowed to write letters, to drink wine and to smoke. These were the 5 conditions or things which were allowed to him. By the terms of the agreement, the only relations he could have with the outer world were by a little window made purposely for that purpose. So there was a small window which was made in the lodge, okay, which was purposely made for the purpose, meaning उसी रीजन से बनाई गई थी ताकि वो लॉयर का कनेक्शन आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड के लिए उसी विंडो के थ्रू हो पाए. The only relationship that he could have with the outer world was with this little window which was purposely made to solve this purpose. He might have anything he wanted. मतलब उसको ये लिबर्टी थी कि वो कुछ भी ऑर्डर कर सकता था, यानी बुक्स, म्यूजिक, वाइन एंड सो ऑन, जो भी चीज़ें उसकी कंडीशंस में थी, in any quantity he desired by writing an order. By writing an order means एक पेपर पे वो लिख के दे सकता था, like a checklist or a list, कि मुझे ये items इतने चाहिए. But he could talk to anybody through the window also. But could only receive them through the window. कोई दरवाज़ा नहीं खोलेगा, कोई उसको पास नहीं करेगा चीज़ें. Only through the window he would receive whatever he asked for. The agreement provided for every detail and every trifle that would make his imprisonment strictly solitary. So the agreement provided for every detail and every trifle, हर छोटी से छोटी बात उस agreement में mention थी, that would make his imprisonment strictly solitary. हर उस छोटी चीज़ पे ध्यान दिया गया था which could make his imprisonment solitary, यानी अकेले रहने के लिए जो चीज़ें उसके लिए ज़रूरी थी, हर छोटी से छोटी बात उस agreement में mention थी. And bound the young man to stay there exactly 15 years, beginning from, these are the dates mentioned when the bet started, 12 o'clock of November 14th, 1870. 1870 से उसकी bet start हुई, November 14th was the date, and ending at 12 o'clock of November 14th, 1885. 15 साल बाद, 1870 के बाद, उसी date को, यानी 14 November, 12 o'clock, 1885, will be the date when his bet would get over. The slightest attempt on his part to break the conditions, अगर उस lawyer ने छोटी सी भी कोशिश करी या छोटा सा भी कुछ disalignment किया on the conditions laid down in the agreement, if only 2 minutes before the end, even 2 मिनट पहले यानी 12 बजे तक bet थी, अगर वो 11:58 तक भी कोई condition को disagree करता है या violate करता है, would release the banker from the obligation to pay him 2 million. अगर उसने 2 मिनट पहले भी कोई रूल को वायलेट किया, that would release the banker from the obligation of paying him the 2 million. Obviously bet में stake क्या था? Banker के $2 million and a lawyer के 15 years of freedom. Alright. So अगर lawyer ने कोई भी छोटी से छोटी गलती करी या छोटे से छोटे रूल को follow नहीं किया, even 2 minutes before the time period is over of the bet, तो बैंकर को $2 million उसको पे नहीं करने पड़ेंगे. Alright? So this was the pact or the agreement that was made between the banker and the lawyer, starting from 14th of November 12 o'clock, 1870. Okay. Now let's see the life of the lawyer in that prison. How did he evolve? Okay, क्या हुआ उसके साथ? How did he feel and how did he discover himself anew after the imprisonment was over? So let's get started. For the first year of his confinement, as far as one could judge from his brief notes, the prisoner suffered severely from loneliness and depression. First year of his confinement, yani first year of his imprisonment, as one could judge from the brief notes, anybody was not allowed to meet him. Nobody was allowed to see him. He was not allowed to see anybody or to talk to anybody, right? So only one conversation that was there between him and the outside world was through the small notes that he was writing. Okay. So unhi notes ke badaulat, people outside could judge how was he feeling, how was he behaving, and what was he going through. So from those notes, people could make out that he was severely suffering from loneliness and depression. Depression means feeling of sadness, feeling of left out, feeling of, being defeated. So he was obviously feeling sad. It was the very first year. He was just 25 years old, if you remember, right? He was a very young man. अब किसी भी एक young इंसान को आप एक साल के लिए बंद कर दो, in the heat of the moment, he agreed to the challenge. It was very difficult for him to sink in that feeling that he'll not be moving out of this lodge for next 15 years. So पहला साल उनका वाकई ही बहुत बुरा गया. Okay. In the second year, let's see how did he react in the second year. The prisoner asked only for the classics. Classics may be, classic novels. Classic means maybe some basic habits that he had, maybe tea, coffee, alcohol, whatever. So he only asked for the basic needs or the classic novels. In the fifth year, क्या किया उन्होंने? Those who watched him through the window said that all that year he spent doing nothing but eating and drinking and lying on the bed. Fifth year तक he was so dejected कि उन्होंने books भी जो मंगवाई थी पहले या the basic needs that he wanted, अब उन सब चीज़ों से परे हट के what he did in the fifth year was eating and drinking and lying on the bed. सिर्फ खाते थे, पीते थे और बेड पे सोते रहते थे. Frequently yawning and angrily talking to himself. किसी और से बात करने के लिए कोई था नहीं, right? So he was angrily talking to himself. Why angrily? Because of depression, because of dejection, because of hatred for himself. He was angrily talking to himself alone. He did not read books. कुछ भी नहीं पढ़ रहे थे. Any books that he had asked for earlier, he was not reading them. Sometimes at night, he would sit down to write. He would spend hours writing and in the morning, tear up all that he had written. In other words, doing useless tasks. अपने पे confidence खत्म हो गया अगले का. What he was doing, sometimes he was seen writing throughout the night. पूरी रात बैठ के कुछ ना कुछ लिख रहे हैं. And what he did with those writings in the morning, he tore off all those pages. This shows what? That he was not, he was not able to understand what he's supposed to do. Or he did not believe in whatever he was doing. He did not have the sense to think, act logically. So वो कुछ भी लिख रहे थे या कुछ भी कर रहे थे and he felt it useless and waste in the morning. So he tore those pages off in the morning. More than once he could be heard crying. Obviously, people could hear him crying also. More than once, in other words, काफ़ी बार लोगों ने उनको रोते हुए भी सुना. Nobody could talk to him, but they could obviously hear him. So they had heard him crying at times. Now in the second half of the sixth year, अभी तक उनके imprisonment के 6 years and 6 months have passed. Okay, so in the second half of the sixth year, the prisoner began zealously studying languages, philosophy and history. Now is the turning point of his life imprisonment. वो टाइम था जहाँ पे उन्होंने डिसाइड किया कि instead of wasting all the remaining years of my imprisonment, I should utilize this time period to enlighten myself, to enrich myself and to learn some new skills, some new subjects, some new theories. So what he decided? He zealously decided to study languages, philosophy and history. 3 subjects उन्होंने उठाए. Zealously का मतलब बहुत energy के साथ, पूरे determination और excitement के साथ. He wanted to study the languages, philosophy and history. He threw himself eagerly into the 3 subjects. बहुत ही अच्छे से, determinedly, properly, he just went into the study of the 3 subjects. So much so that the banker had enough to do to get him the books he ordered. इन अदर वर्ड्स ऑब्वियसली वो जो लिस्ट में लिख के देते थे विच वॉज पास्ड ऑन टू द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड थ्रू दैट विंडो, तो वो जितनी भी बुक्स लिख के देते थे द बैंकर यूज टू गेट देम फॉर हिम. सो इतना ज़्यादा इनग्रॉस थे वो इन तीनों सब्जेक्ट्स की पढ़ाई में दैट द बैंकर हैड इनफ टू डू टू गेट हिम द बुक्स ही ऑर्डर्ड. पूरे टाइम he was busy doing nothing else, the banker was busy doing nothing else but to get him the books that he had ordered. In the course of 4 years, some 600 volumes were procured at his request. In the course of 4 years, मतलब हम कब की बात कर रहे थे? When 6 years and 6 months had passed. Now he continued his learning for 4 more years. In other words, 10 years हो चुके हैं. Okay? So he says, in the course of 4 years, some 600 volumes were procured at his request. Procured, खरीदने पड़े उस बैंकर को. तो कम से कम नहीं तो 600 volumes, 600 books were ordered by that lawyer in the period of these 4 years. Okay. It was during this period that the banker received the following letter from the prisoner. ये सब पढ़ने के बाद, इतना सब कुछ पढ़ने के बाद, now the lawyer wanted even to judge himself, to assess himself, to examine himself कि मैंने कितना सीखा है. ये तो मैं देखूं कि आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड के हिसाब से जो मैंने बुक से सीखा है वो कुछ फ्रूटफुल हो रहा है कि नहीं. So the lawyer wrote a letter to the banker. Let's see what the letter was. My dear jailer, I write you these lines in 6 languages. उसने वो लेटर 6 different languages में लिख के दिया. Show them to the people who know the languages. Obviously, the banker was not expected to know all 6 languages because, and even the lawyer did not know before he was imprisoned. He learned them during the course of time. So he said, show these letters to the people who know these languages. Let them read these letters. If they find not one mistake, I implore you to fire a shot in the garden. एक एक लेटर आप पढ़ाते रहना लोगों को, और अगर उनको एक भी मिस्टेक नहीं मिलती है मेरे लेटर्स में, तो आई रिक्वेस्ट यू, आई एम्प्लॉय यू, आई रिक्वेस्ट यू टू फायर अ शॉट इन द गार्डन. एक बार एक शॉट कर देना with your gun in the garden, which will make me believe, because he could not have a conversation, the banker could not come back to the window and tell him that, you know, your letters were impeccable. So he said the only way how this would be like a sign for me to know that my letters were proper and perfect in those languages. So एक letter अगर मेरा सही है तो एक, you know, एक shot कर देना आप garden में. That shot will show me that my efforts have not been thrown away. That shot will show me that I have not wasted all these years in vain and I have learned something new. My efforts have been paid off well. The geniuses of all ages and of all lands speak different languages. थोड़ी सी philosophy उसने उसमें डाली because philosophy was something that he was learning all through these years. So he said, the geniuses of all ages, जितने भी geniuses या genius minds हुए हैं या genius लोग हुए हैं इस दुनिया में, of different ages, are from different land and speak different languages. अलग अलग जगह से, कुछ इंडिया से, कुछ अमेरिका से, कुछ कहीं से. So obviously they have been different, speaking different languages. But the same flame burns in them all. In other words, they all have the same intellect. They have the same thought process. So they have the same energies. They have the same excitement. They have the same zeal. Language अलग हो सकती है, but उनकी thought process और उनका intellect obviously was similar. Oh, if you only knew what unearthly happiness my soul feels now from being able to understand them. So in other words, he feels that I have achieved something being in this prison because अब मैं उनकी बातें समझ सकता हूँ. Oh, if you only knew what unearthly happiness my soul feels now. Unearthly happiness यानी इस earth के beyond, in other words, eternal happiness जो मुझे मिल रही है, ये जान के where I have been able to understand them, because I've been able to understand their work, I've been able to understand their books in these different languages. इसलिए I really feel elated and accomplished. The prisoner's desire was fulfilled. Banker ने भी अपना promise पूरा किया, जो उसने request की थी lawyer ने वो उसको दिया. The banker ordered 2 shots to be fired in the garden. In other words, इससे क्या पता चलता है, जो 6 letters उसने लिखे थे, out of them 2 were perfectly correct. So 2 languages उसको अच्छे से, 2 languages उसको अच्छे से आ चुकी थी. That was for sure. Then after the 10th year, the prisoner sat immovably at the table and read nothing but the gospel. What is gospel? Teachings of Christianity. Teachings of or learnings of Christian religion. Okay. So अब 10 साल हो गए, उन्होंने ये चीज़ें सीख ली. He read and he learned a lot rather about languages, about philosophy, and about history. Now what? Now again, he started feeling to read more, to learn more. तो 10th year के बाद immovably he sat at the table and read nothing but the gospel. After the 10th year, उन्होंने कुछ भी नहीं किया, but he sat immovably and read nothing but the gospel. उन्होंने सिर्फ gospel पढ़ा, यानी learnings of the Christian religion. It seemed strange to the banker that a man who in 4 years had mastered 600 learned volumes should waste nearly a year over one thin book of easy comprehension. Easy comprehension का मतलब जो कि easily समझने लायक थी, easily comprehensible. Okay. So it seemed strange to the banker. Banker को लगा कि after learning, mastering 600 learned volumes, 600 books उसने order करी थी ना banker से. So he said, and उसके बाद उसने learn भी कर ली, languages भी सीख ली, बहुत कुछ सीख भी लिया. So the banker felt he is wasting his time, the entire year just reading that one thin book, which was easy comprehensible. यानी उसके अंदर कुछ ऐसा difficult था भी नहीं जो वो पूरे साल बैठ के उसी book को पढ़ता रहा. But for the lawyer, it was important and it was meaningful to read the gospel the entire year. In the last 2 years of his confinement, the prisoner read an immense quantity of books quite indiscriminately. Indiscriminately मतलब बिना differentiation के. In other words, हर level की, हर languages की, हर subjects की, हर topics की books उसने मंगवाई. For example, at one time he was busy with the natural sciences, and then he would ask for Byron or Shakespeare. Byron and Shakespeare are learned authors. Okay, so उनकी books कभी मंगवा रहे थे, कभी यानी in other words कभी literature order कर रहा था, कभी he was ordering natural sciences. There were notes in which he demanded at the same time books on chemistry and a manual of medicine. कभी chemistry पढ़ रहे थे, कभी medicine, कभी natural sciences, कभी literature. And a novel and some treatise on philosophy or theology. Okay, theology is the study of religion, and treatise means some formally written documents, okay, on a particular topic or subject. So कभी वो कुछ मंगवा रहे थे, कभी वो कुछ मंगवा रहे थे. His reading suggested a man swimming in the sea among the wreckage of his ship. This line is very important, guys. I'll read it once and then we'll get down to the explanation. His reading suggested a man swimming in the sea among the wreckage of his ship and trying to save his life by greedily clutching first at one spar and then at another. Spar means any log of wood, a kind of log of wood which is used as a mast in the ship. Okay, so in other words, any broken part of the ship. So here there's a use of metaphor. Okay, it's a device which is used in the writings wherein you are comparing two things or two humans for that matter, without using the terms like or as. We say as good as this or as sweet as honey. So that is a simile जहाँ पे हम like या as कह देते हैं. But जहाँ पे हम compare तो कर रहे हैं चीज़ों को, but हम like और as words का use नहीं कर रहे हैं, that is a metaphor. So this is a classic example of the use of metaphor here. His readings suggested a man swimming in the sea. जिस तरह से वो पढ़ रहे थे, he was reading on different topics. कोई भी correlation नहीं था उन topics पे. कभी religion पढ़ रहे हैं, कभी philosophy पढ़ रहे हैं, कभी theology पढ़ रहे हैं, कभी chemistry, कभी literature, कभी sciences, कभी medicine. So there is no connection between his readings. So his reading suggested a man swimming in the sea among the wreckage of his ship. ऐसा लग रहा था कि there is a man whose ship is broken and he's swimming in the middle of the sea. Middle of the sea relates to what? It relates to a situation where you don't have control over your life. Okay. So it seemed that a man is swimming in the middle of the sea where his ship is broken and trying to save his life by greedily clutching on first at one spar and then at another. Greedily clutching का मतलब होता है पकड़ना, कस के पकड़ना. So that man who is now left in the middle of the waters is just trying to hold on at least to some log at some point or to the other at some point to give some direction to his life. That is what is being suggested about the lawyer at this moment of time. Alright, with this we end the second part of the story as well, and in the third part we'll complete the story Do comment in the comment section if you find it very slow or very fast, or how do you find my explanations. It would be a pleasure reading all your comments and replying back as soon as possible. Thank you for your time, and bye for now. Bye.